wonderful speaker. So Joanne Mortimer is a senior outplacement and career management professional who has guided thousands of professionals through all phases of the job search. Her areas of expertise are in resume writing, networking, social media, and interviewing. Joanne has been consistently recognized by clients for her coaching and workshop facilitation skills. Prior to LHH, she held human resource generalist positions in a variety of industries, including financial services, insurance, and real estate. I do want to let you know this is being recorded, and I remember to hit record, but that because of proprietary information, we cannot share the PowerPoint with you. So I just want to give you that heads up, but Joanne has put together a Word document that I will be able to share. I think it's already in the chat room, but I'll put it in the chat room again. Oh, and the last thing, my little note says, don't forget to tell them how to save the chat. So for those of you who want to save the chat, go to, I muted him. Go to the chat box, open your chat box. And on the right side, there are 3 little dots where it's, and if you hover over those 3 little dots, it will say more. Click on those 3 little dots and hit at the top of the box, save chat. And now the chat is saved and it hopefully will pop up on your computer when you're all done. And Joanne, take it away.
Okay, hi. Happy New Year, everybody. Good morning. Happy New Year. Hope your holidays were great. And Meryl, thank you for having me present this topic. I thought talking about resumes at the beginning of the year was good timing, right? Because whether you're looking or not, you know, usually if you're working, you get a review at the end of the year, so you can take some of that content and then update your resume. So I guess we'll go right to the PowerPoint. Meryl, we can, okay. Share, I want to do from the beginning. Okay, everybody can see that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. Let me just move this here. Okay, so I put this PowerPoint together to give you an overview of the resume process, what types of resumes there are, and then how you go about updating it. And this is the agenda. This is what we'll be covering. So there are 3 different types of resumes, and that's what is out in the document that everybody got. We'll get into those formatting guidelines for the resumes. Self-assessment is just taking a self-assessment of who you are and then aligning your skills, background, and experience with your market where you want to go. So think about that. We'll get more into that. And then actually doing the updating of the resume. And we'll get into the different sections. Reference list I added here because sometimes I'll see resumes that say references available upon request on the resume, but it's actually a separate document. So that's why I added that there. And then the wrap up. And we will break for questions at certain points. So if something comes up, you can write it down and then we'll take a break and I'll try to answer your questions. So let's get into first the different types of resumes. They typically go back like 10 to 15 years. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's in talent acquisition yesterday. She, in her mind, 12 years is enough, but I said 10 to 15. If you've been working for 20, 30 years, you don't have to go back that far. You don't want to go back that far. I have my own personal, what I call my biography resume, which is 4 pages, because it's near and dear to me, my experience. But if I'm going to send one out, I'm not going to send one out that goes back that far. So probably most of you have a reverse chronological resume, which shows your most recent experience, and then you work back to earlier experience. This is the most preferred by hiring managers because it shows everything in a logical order. They don't have to figure things out. And also, I don't know who's familiar with the ATSs of the world, but this format works better with the applicant tracking systems because they're designed to look at a resume in reverse chronological order. And the ATS is what you're using or what the online job application systems are using to pull resumes out. So you'll hear me say ATS more than once this morning. So the most popular resume format is this reverse chronological. Another format is what is called hybrid. So it's kind of a combination of the reverse chronological and the functional. And it's the second resume that's in the document that you got in the chat room this morning. So instead of a list of skills after your summary, you can select your top 3 areas of expertise and then list 1 or 2 accomplishments. And we will get into examples of each thing on this PowerPoint. And again, you also have it in the handout that you have. The last type of resume is called a functional. This is good for people who may have employment gaps, or if you've held many jobs over a short period of time. So you would have your skills highlighted on page 1 instead of your reverse chronological experience. So those are the 3 types of resumes. This is very important too in terms of the formatting. Again, I'm talking about the ATSs here. You're dealing with the system, the applicant tracking system. So things that are okay on a resume are round bullets, bold text, all caps. What's not okay are things like headers, footers, tables, columns, because the system will stop. So if you have a header in your resume, the applicant tracking system might stop reading the resume right at the end of that header, or right at the end of an underline. So you want to be careful with how you format it. And these things are not okay in terms of dealing with the applicant tracking systems. The docx, PDF, if allowed by the system, they're the most compatible. And I usually see resumes, 11-point font with Calibri works well, but I've seen Arial. So, you'll see anywhere from maybe 10.5 to 11 to 12 font, which works, 1-inch margins. This is also important for the applicant tracking system. You can use long and short forms of terms. So Bachelor of Arts, BA, Key Performance Indicator, KPI, maybe subject matter expertise, which is SME. You can spell it out because the person doing a search might use either one of those terms, and this way you're capturing both in your document. Now, what I always think is helpful ahead of updating your resume is doing a self-assessment. And so I put this slide in here. You might want to take a look at what the market is buying. So if you're in a certain job, let's say you're a business analyst and you're looking for the first time in 5 years or 10 years, you can start looking at job descriptions online. So just plug in on one of these websites like Glassdoor, LinkedIn Jobs, Indeed, business analyst, and look at the job descriptions to see what the companies are buying. Do you have the skills that they're looking for? Are you using the right terminology? Terms change over the years. If you're in HR, back in the day, it used to be called personnel, then human resources, and you hear human capital now. So you want to stay on top of the current trends for your field as well. And that's why you can do a search on jobs ahead of updating your resume and just get a sense of what's going on in the marketplace. You probably heard of these. These are the most common: Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter. I always hear the commercial for ZipRecruiter. LinkedIn Jobs, there's you have your LinkedIn profile. There's also a link there to set up your job alerts. And then you can go to your target company websites, their career pages. So once you do your self-assessment, then based on your research, you can update your resume. And I just mentioned this, you want to talk the same language because those are the key terms that the recruiters, the hiring managers, are plugging into the applicant tracking system. I know this isn't probably what you want to hear, but it's also common and recommended that you tailor your resume to a specific job. Again, getting back to that applicant tracking system. I don't know who's heard of this website, jobscan.co, but if you want to see how well your resume matches up with a job, you can go to that website. It's really easy to use. You get a certain number of checks for free. You can plug in your resume content on one side of the screen, and on the other side, you can plug in the job description, and it will tell you how well you match up. It's not foolproof, because I've worked with clients who matched up really well, say 70, 80%, and didn't hear on an application. So it is something that, you know, if you want to check it out, you can, just to see how well you match up. And I always think, you know, when talking to Meryl about the timing of this, I thought January was good, because even if you're not looking for a job, I think it's good to update your resume on an annual basis. And typically when you're working, you do get an appraisal at the end of the year. So appraisals, we're talking about our accomplishments. We're looking to get the money, right? And so you can take those accomplishments and transfer them to your resume. So I am going to focus in this presentation on the reverse chronological, and we'll go over examples for each section. And these are the sections that you'll find. And they're also listed on the document that you have as well. So reverse chronological, you've got your personal details and your heading, the summary, which is your commercial, your key areas of expertise. This is something that's evolved over the years, this section, because again, we're getting back to that applicant tracking system. It allows you to have a section with keywords that match up your job with or your experience with the job opening. And then here's where you get into the reverse chronological experience. And these are things that wind up usually on page 2. And 1 to 2 page is what we're talking about. Most people with experience will have 2-page resumes. I've worked with college kids, you know, recent college grads, and now even some of those have 2-page resumes because they get started early with their internships. So education, professional development, certifications, affiliations, those are things that you see at the end of the resume. Okay, so I'm going to talk about each section in detail here. Up at the top, your name, city, state, not always needed. You don't have to put that on if you don't want to. A lot of people now are looking for remote work. You know, that's one of the, I guess, the silver linings with COVID, but that's also increased the competition because you can apply for a job anywhere. Phone number, usually your, you know, cell phone. I don't know if everybody has a landline these days. We have one just because it's part of the package, but we don't answer it because everybody who wants to reach us calls our cell phone, our mobile. You don't have to say phone either. You can just put the number on the resume. It's understood that's your phone number. Same with email. You don't have to say email as the header. You can just put, you know, jmortimer@gmail.com. This is preferred Gmail over these others because it's considered a more current provider. I was working with somebody who has AOL just because they've had it a while. They do have a Gmail one for search, but AOL didn't even work with Zoom invites either. The invitations they weren't getting all the information. I'm guessing most of you, if not all, have a LinkedIn profile, so you can add your URL at the top of your resume. And when I say customize, it just means cleaning it up. And when the system generates a URL for you, it usually includes a lot of numbers and letters after your name. And I guess at the end of the presentation, maybe I can go into LinkedIn and show you how to clean that up if you're not familiar with that. So this is the stuff that goes in your heading, your contact info. And I've seen resumes where people will hide this, embed this in a header, which again, you don't want to do, because if you have it as a header, set up as a header in your resume, the ATS could stop right at the end of this information and not even get to your resume content, your experience. And this is what it could look like. Just something simple. Okay, after the header, you have your summary. which is your commercial. I call it your commercial, your professional brand, who you are professionally. This is your opportunity to show your audience, your target market, your experience, your areas of expertise, if you have any special technical or professional skills. You can also include the industries that you've worked in, if it makes sense. And if you're looking to switch industries, so let's say you've always been in telecom, you want to get into pharma, just be careful with industry. You don't want to say 15 years experience in telecom if you're looking to segue into pharma. You would just talk about your skill set instead of focusing on that industry. But if you had, on the flip side, if you worked at a pharma company maybe 15 years ago and you want to get back into it, this is where in the summary you could say experience in the financial services, real estate and pharmaceutical industries to get your reader, interested in that experience. The hiring managers, the talent acquisition people, they're looking to pull in or talk to the best candidates for a job. And this is where they're looking first at your summary. So you're wanting to get their attention right at the beginning. Give them a reason not to screen you out. And I would say too, if you want to end with a tagline in your summary to show how you are different from the competition or unique in a good way, it could be based on awards that you've received or, something that you've been consistently recognized for. So you can include that tagline. If you've got numerous performance-related awards, that could be a line in your summary. And the last thing I have there is the intangibles. If you think about products that you love, everybody, loves iPhones or everybody loves certain cars. What are the traits or characteristics of those products? If you have something similar, maybe you can work that in your summary as well. And I gave you some examples here. Wasn't sure of the background of everybody on the call, so I gave a bunch of different examples. Senior administrative assistant, this is putting all of these pieces together into your commercial, your professional brand. So here's that tagline. Oops, let me go back. Here's the tagline here: received several performance-related awards for going above and beyond. Consistently recognized for providing excellent customer service to internal and external customers. And these are the key skills that you can include that are important now. They've evolved over the years to get to this point because, again, we're dealing with the applicant tracking systems. These are things that you would expect to see in a job ad for a senior administrative assistant and your areas of expertise. Sometimes clients don't think about this, being fluent in another language. You could have a section at the bottom of your resume that says languages. You can also put it up in the summary. So this is for senior administrative assistant. This is a higher level global finance vice president. Particularly skilled in analyzing data, partnering with C-suite executives. And then we're saying global because the US, Asia, and Europe. And then another way to put your key skills. And I see there's a typo here, signature strengths. Sorry about that. Signature strengths. And then here's one for an IT person. Are there any questions, Meryl, at this point on the summaries?
Well, there were some questions before the summary.
Okay.
Oh, here's my picture. And I've been writing them down, so I don't have to go look for them in the chat box. So I get that at the beginning, you were talking about going back 15 years in the resume. So Joyce asked, what if you worked for the same company for 32 years?
Okay, great question. They can hear me, right, everybody? So Joyce, you don't have to go back all 30 years. we'll talk about this going forward when we get into experience. You can highlight your earlier experience with the company under this heading called additional relevant experience, and you'll see an example coming forward. And again, if you started, let's say you started as an HR coordinator with the company and now you're an HR VP, you don't have to show that HR coordinator. You just, want to focus on the, the senior level roles, the VP level roles. So you can keep that document for yourself, your history, as I call it, the full resume, but you can shorten it up. You don't have to go back that far. Usually when somebody's been with a company for a long time, they've had different titles. So you can just break down maybe the last, 2 or 3, 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, and Nancy asked a similar question.
Meryl,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to ask a quick question.
All right, Barry, go.
Hi, just a quick question. When you said additional, whatever, relevant,
Additional relevant experience, yeah.
what happens if, you have your education and you're supposed to put a year of your education, but for 10 years, it wasn't relevant? I was always told you just put prior experience. Doesn't have to be prior relevant, because it may not be relevant, but you don't want to have a total, if your job was for 12 or 13 or 14 years, and then you had another job for only 2 years, you don't want to go back, that far, but you want to put your prior experience.
Yes. Yeah. Great question. So you could say prior experience, you could say early career experience. If it's not related, it doesn't have to go on. My resume, I've been working for a long time, and my early stuff, I don't even have on it. It's not necessary.
Right.
And the skills I use there, I still use the same skill sets, but the role isn't relevant to where I would want to go next. So correct. And you'll see some examples as we move forward. Yep. Great question.
If you don't mind, while I have the floor for 1 second,
Yeah.
I didn't see a volunteering kind of a section on there. Is that later?
Yes. So we're just getting into the summary at this point. So, right. So in the agenda, we talked.
Later.
Yeah.
I didn't need to jump the gun.
No, that's okay. So bring it up later, because there are volunteer opportunities that give you a skill set that might help you get to where you want to go. Perfect.
Okay, I got 2, 3 really quick ones. One was,
Okay.
You were talking about the applicant tracking system and bolding and bullets, and someone asked, what about italics?
Italics, I would not use italics. I would just use this font here, this regular font.
Okay, and then you were talking about acronyms, and someone whose name, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it, said he's an IT person, he's got 1 million in acronyms. Is he supposed to expand on all of those?
Oh, if it's IT, no. So if it's IT, that's a different language. Yeah.
Okay.
I know there's systems development lifecycle, SDLC. They might want to spell that out. But PMP is,
Okay, and one more really quick one. So Edith asked, if you're short on space, do you really need a separate skills section if the skills are going to be within the jobs?
It's recommended.
Go ahead.
If you're short on space, you might want to look and see, what you've got on page 2. You could, if you're short on space, you could just take this key skills and add them right here, if you wanted to in the paragraph.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, this is just a common look here. So if you're short on space, you might want to say, okay, what else can I take out from page 2? Can I shorten something on the prior page to give me the space to put this?
Okay, let's keep going, and I'll write down more questions.
All right, great questions. Okay, so key skills, areas of expertise, we talked about that. You can also Google, key skills for jobs that you're looking at, Google keywords for your profession. So key skills for business analyst. And you can also do a word cloud. So if you want to take a job description and then do a word cloud, it'll show you which words show up the most. So here's where we get into the reverse chronology, your professional or work experience, company, city, state. You can add 1 or 2 lines about the company if it's not well known. There's some companies that clients have worked at that I've never heard of. And so you can add a 1 or 2 sentence description. So it explains to me what business they're in, maybe the size of it. We used to say you just needed the years in the position, but the applicant tracking systems are looking for the months. So you want to put the months and the years. By doing the years, you're able to get away with gaps, but this is now required because of the ATSs. Your title, responsibility statement, 1 to 2 sentences describing the scope of the job, and then, 5 to 6 bullets for each role that start with action verbs. And as you go further back, you can have fewer bullets. The key thing here with the bullets is a hiring manager, a talent acquisition person will know what's a job description versus what's an accomplishment. So we're going to talk more about this because this is important. This shows how you excelled in the role, what you did that added value. So here are some examples that I put together. A1 Fashions, I never heard of it. We've heard of Ralph Lauren, Polo, Tommy Hilfiger, A1 Fashions. So you could add, a line here about the scope of the job. And this is where you would put the month, the year. And here's the scope of the job, what you did in that role as a demand planner, $10 million annual business out of the 50 million in the company. And then we're starting the bullets with the action verbs. So analyze consumer trends. You reported it to senior management. They use the data for long-term planning. So that's the result. You played a key role in developing best practices that were adopted by other clothing lines in the company. So something you did in your unit was so good that it was picked up by other areas. So this, to answer the question about I think it was 32 years at the company, you could say the company name and just list maybe the most recent. So you would have the company name once, your title here, 6/2012 to present, and then a prior role, HR generalist. If you have another role before that, you could add that as well, but you don't have to go back. 32 years is 1990, right? 1990. So this again, showing the scope of the job.
30 years. 32 is
1990s, 32, right?
92. I'm sorry. I thought I heard you say 92.
It was 1988. I was laid off in July of 2020.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, so you could do something like this. You could have the company name once. You don't have to go back to, you said 1988, so you don't have to list your first title there, or the first few jobs that you had.
But when I do list my company, do I put down the term of the years? And then when I break down positions,
so you don't have to. I'll go back up here. This one, like you wouldn't have to do 1988 to 2020, you said?
2020.
Okay. Yeah, so you wouldn't have to do something like that. You can just do it like this for each title.
Okay.
And not 1990 to 2020 over here.
Thank you.
1992, no, 1988. I'm sorry, 1988 to 2020.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I've worked with clients, and I've looked at their bullets, and I've said, I can remember when I said, yeah, this looks like a job description to me. And he laughed. So this is what you're striving for here, the accomplishment piece. And this is in present tense because it's an ongoing thing and this person is still in that role. And what they're doing is they're, ensuring consistency between the actions. So they're doing the managing the annual process. So this gets to that question about additional relevant. If it's not relevant, you could call it early career experience, prior experience. And if it's not related, I've had people change careers, go from, one role into another, a non-IT role into IT, and we didn't need that because they're focused on the IT skills. Now, in terms of the bullets, these are important. So I just put together some keywords that you can use to start them. achieved, calculated, created, improved, did you improve something, optimized, streamlined, turned around? So it's not limited to this, but these would be sample action verbs. Sometimes people don't think about this either. Like, I've seen it where people say they were part of a team or on a team. So I'll push back, did you play a key role, or were you handpicked? Were you selected by the VP to lead a project? So think about, your experience in that way as well. Memory joggers are good. These are questions that you can ask yourself if you look at your resume. If you're thinking about your experience, if you look at each job. I've had people who've won numerous awards and I didn't know until I pulled it out of them. And there are some companies, some big companies, they, give a lot of awards for certain things, especially if you're in sales, pharmaceutical sales, there are a lot of awards that the sales reps get. And sometimes I'll have clients who are in administrative roles and they'll say that their roles, they don't really have any accomplishments, but when I push back, they do have accomplishments. If they, like in one case, this is going back a ways, but, just taking over the supply ordering process and reducing expenses, or controlling it or centralizing it. So that's an admin role, but it's an accomplishment because you restructured something and it saved the company money. So here are some other memory joggers. And if you have your annual appraisals, those are always good to review as well as you're going through your resume updating process, because those are accomplishment oriented. So once you have your accomplishments, you can use this format to create what we call these PARS stories. What issue did you face? What action did you take? What was the result? What skills did you use? So this A and the R piece becomes the bullet on the resume. And the skills that you used, it's helpful to do these because once you have an assessment of all of your skills, you can then think about, okay, which skills do I love? Which skills am I really good at? And then they might make the top of that resume summary. This is also helpful to do for interviewing. That's a whole nother seminar, but this preps you for the interview, which comes down the road, because what's bigger behavior-based questions, tell me about a time when, or have you ever been in a situation where, these PARS stories will help you answer those questions. All right, before we get into that, any questions at this point on the accomplishments, the bullets?
I got lots of questions here.
Okay.
A lot about dates and stuff. So first of all, Nancy asked, where do you put secret clearance?
Oh, that could be in the summary, or it could be at the end. Let me just see if I go down here. It could be one of these categories, clearance, clearance, or it could be, I've seen it up in the summary as well, like a last sentence.
Okay, and someone asked, William asked, is it okay to make a job title more descriptive than the one that's on record?
I would put the actual title because of verification, but what you can do is, I've seen it where clients said, well, I was in line to get promoted, I was doing the work, but I didn't because the position ended. You could put the 1 or 2 sentence description about that higher level role that you did, or if the title doesn't, sometimes, companies all have different titles, and sometimes you wonder how they got them, but you could put something descriptive like the actual title and then functional title or responsible for. So you can work it into that 1 or 2 sentence description.
Terrific. Nancy also asked, if I was a consultant for 6 months and then I was hired, do I just put in the 15-year range? Or do I indicate that I was a consultant that was then hired as a permanent?
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, so what you can do, let me go back up to. Sure, what you can do is you could make it a bullet and you could have the last bullet. So let's say you were HR director, but you started as a consultant, right? So you could make it as the last bullet. Well, you know what, it's a better one. Maybe I'll go here. So you could say as the last bullet, you know, hired as a consultant and became, you know, or converted to full-time employee after 6 months of service. You could do something like that.
Okay, sounds good. Joyce, who we were talking to before about the 32 years of service, put in, well, if I only put in that I went, you know, for the 15 years and then they contact the company and they say I was there since 1988, would that be a problem?
No, because it's a marketing tool. So it's, you know, you're just marketing what is most relevant to where you want to go.
I see that, Edwin, you have your hand up and we'll get to you in a second. I just want to read what's here. So someone asked, Christine asked, I've had the past 5 years have been survival jobs, not related to my career as a graphic designer before that. How do I do that on my resume? You know, like retail or substitute teaching or that kind of thing.
So you could probably do something like, is she doing, she, right? What's her name?
Christine,
Christine.
you want to unmute yourself? You hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay.
Hi, Christine.
Sorry.
So are
Hi.
you doing freelance graphic design now?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So you could, under your experience, you could have a header that says graphic design experience. You're doing freelance, right? So you are.
Yes, yes, I am.
So do you have an LLC or is it?
I currently don't because I'm trying to keep costs low.
Okay.
But I actually did have an LLC a couple of years ago. But I had to dissolve the business because it wasn't supporting me financially.
Right. Yeah, so I'm thinking what you could do is you could, in the reverse chronological resume, you could put the header instead of professional experience, or you could use professional experience and then underneath you could put graphic design experience and then freelance work, whatever the year is to present, because you are doing it. So you're still in the field, and then have the prior graphic design job. And then below that, you could put the header, you know, corporate experience or other experience with those jobs, the survival jobs, I think you called them.
Yeah, okay.
Because I've had some clients who are changing careers, and we put, in one case, they were using volunteer experience to get a full-time job. So we put that experience first. It was non-paying, but we gave it a headline. We didn't say volunteer because it was good experience. And then we put corporate experience for the corporate jobs below it.
Okay.
So you could probably split it into two, and up at the top put graphic design experience, and you've got the, you know, maybe it's you don't have a name, but you could do, you know, freelance consulting, and then, you know, have worked with clients or produced work for clients in A, B, and C industries, and then your other graphic design job, and then the second heading, you know, other experience with the jobs that you have now.
Okay.
That's
Thank you.
very relevant when it comes to a lot of our clients, you know, are doing the Amazon or the Macy's thing in between while they're looking for other jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Edwin, we're going to take you last. You have your hand raised. You want to unmute yourself? Do you have a question, or did you raise your hand by mistake?
Okay, yeah, no, I have a question. And actually, boy, I'm in the car on my phone. It's very, very different. I can't do chat. I've lost the screen share. So
Go ahead, ask your question, Edwin. It's okay.
all right. So my question is, how do you deal with career zigzags? Like, I want to be a production manager in manufacturing going forward. I have experience in the past, but I also have 2 jobs in financial services. I applied to them because the commute was good and the pay was good. And I stayed with them for a while because I did well. But it's like a zigzag. My resume is a zigzag.
So what do you want to do next?
Production manager at a manufacturing firm. And I have several years experience in the past at 3 different jobs. I'm a mature worker.
So I just want to make sure I understand the question. So your most current job is what? Production manager?
That's what I want to do during forward. That's what I have lots of experience in the past. My most recent job was in financial services.
Oh,
which
okay.
I didn't plan on getting, but the pay was good, so I stayed with it for 5 years.
So in your summary, you can talk about, your experience for the operations. And if your most recent job is in the financial service area, then you can just minimize, you were there 5 years. You don't have to, talk too much about it. Just maybe put, shorter rather than longer in that section. And then, think about the skills. Are there any skills that you got in the financial job that would help you in the operations job?
Okay,
So
well,
for your
all jobs dealing with people, but okay, I just thought I would ask on that.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. I'm trying to picture it in my mind. So financial job was when till when?
2015 to 2020.
And then before that, it was operations?
Well, yes.
And what were those years?
2010 to 2015. And then there was another financial service job before then, which was like 8 years.
Okay.
And then there were 3 more operational jobs before that, about 6 years each.
Okay, so that's why you're saying you're zigzagging, because you went back and forth between financial services and operations. Yeah, that's where you might
back in
want
the
to
days
use.
of, I'm sorry, one of the reasons was companies were disappearing during globalization.
Yes.
Yeah, I worked for those companies that went to Shanghai.
Okay. So what you might want to do is, if you have the zigzagging, I talked about that hybrid resume, and I also gave everybody an example of it. It's the middle example in that attachment that Meryl gave everybody. So with the hybrid, you could list your 3 areas of expertise in the operations area to bring attention to it right up front, and then give significant, accomplishments or experience after each of those 3 keywords. And then get into your reverse chronology and minimize that financial job and maybe bulk up the operations one. But I'm sure, like I said, you said the customer service you get from both fields, right? Financial service and operations. So you can, take advantage of that too.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off because we're going to run out of time, but I have one
Okay.
other question.
Yeah.
So,
thank
and
you.
I don't know how to pronounce this name, Adibisi. He wrote a question in the chat box that I didn't quite understand, so I asked him to please unmute himself and ask the question quickly.
Okay.
Hello, I am a she. My question is, for the past, I would say 14 years, I have worked as a consultant for different agencies because I had to take care of my mother and my aunt. It was cost better for me
Okay.
to do that than hire somebody. So I've done that job, and I've worked in nonprofit and high-level executive assistant, basically chief of staff to the CEO in these positions. But those titles aren't with the different agencies that I worked with. So how do I would rather stay in nonprofit because that's where my passion is. I love helping people. How do I write my resume such that the nonprofit, the skills, because I did a lot of things. I would go in, they'll say, oh, you're really good at this. Let's give you more work to do. So how do I put that on my resume? And most of the jobs that I did were all accomplishments. I went in and I solved a problem. That's
Yeah,
what
good.
I was gift, problem solving. I went and solved a problem, made things better. And even as the chief of staff, I did all of that. So how do I reflect that in my resume? Because I put the two companies that I worked for, the two consulting companies who hired me. How do I reflect that in my resume to show that I am the one who, I don't know how to phrase it, but to make my resume presentable so people will say, oh, she is serious, we want to hire her. Instead of
So
putting
with the
good-
bullets, you can have under each role, you know, the bullet, what you did and what the result was. So for the individual, you know, titles or companies, you're going to have bullets underneath each. And the
Mhm.
summary, you know, consistently recognized for, you know, solving, you know, difficult problems, or for, you know, process improvement.
Okay.
You
Thank
said they, and you're sought out, right? So, you know,
Yes.
you're dealing as a chief of staff, you're dealing with C-suite or very high executives, right?
C-suite and above.
Yeah, so that's, you know, definitely that's something that you can work into your summary, you know, with a track record of success, you know, supporting C-suite executives.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely C-suite, you know, because there's also what comes along with that is just the, you know, the poise or handling confidential information. And I think I had that in that example for the executive or senior administrative assistant. But it sounds like you have some great accomplishments, you know, and if you think about this stuff, these memory joggers here, it sounds like you'll be able to come up with some answers or some bullets, right? Because I think you said you saw problems, you solved it.
Yes.
And, you know, you may have gotten awards or recognized by senior executives, right?
Yes.
Consistently recognized by, you know, by senior executives for can-do attitude or for solving difficult problems. Or for, you know, for coming up with new processes that made things run more smoothly or streamlining things.
Okay.
Okay, I think we need to move on because I know you've got a
Okay.
lot more to go. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. So these are the things that would be at the end. And I think volunteer, I forget the guy's name, but the volunteer certainly could come at the bottom of this. So education, Bachelor of Art, BA marketing, you know, easy enough. Professional development. Some people have said to me over the years, they didn't go to college, but this day and age, you know, we're always learning, right? There are always opportunities to enhance your skills. So even if you did go to college, this is a heading that is common on a resume. Especially with the IT people, you're always having to take classes just to keep up with the changes. PMP, if you have the PMP or if you're a CPA, those are designations that could also go after your name in your heading at the top of the resume. That's not uncommon to see that. Professional affiliations, if you're in HR and you're a member of an HR organization like SHRM, you can include those. Volunteer experience is good. You can use that to your advantage. I've had clients who wanted to get into teaching and they had management jobs, but they've also, you know, been volunteering. Like a lot of parents do coaching for their kids' sports. So that's where you can use that volunteering to your advantage because you have those coaching skills that would work in a school environment. So volunteer, you know, if you're a finance person, you might be the finance secretary for your condo association. So you could put that there. And maybe you're doing volunteering for an organization or you're getting a skill set through your volunteer work that would help you move into a new role. So volunteering could be a category as well. All right. That's the end of the resume format. I can talk quickly about this reference information. Anything else, Meryl? Any other questions from the group?
Right now, not the second, I don't think.
Okay.
Hello, I have one.
Charles, have a
Charles.
question? Go ahead.
Very quickly, on my resume, I have accomplished 20-year career in real estate leasing. That I was advised that maybe I should take the 20-year part out
Yes.
because of ageism.
Yeah, what it's, what they're looking for is your expertise. So you just talk about the expertise. Yeah, there's a move away from that. So don't mention, because somebody could be thinking too, you're saying 20 years and the reviewer could say, well, I only want 15, or he's going to want too much money. So yeah, take the 20 years out and just put expertise in, or track record of success or something like that.
I changed it to notable career in commercial real estate.
Yeah.
Also, I volunteer for a group called NORPAC. I've done a lot for them, but they are an Israeli, no, not lobbying, lobbying or.
It is a lobbying group.
No, it's not. Lobbying is the wrong, advocacy is the right word. It's a legal thing, but technically NORPAC is an advocacy group. The bottom line is, I've definitely accomplished a lot with them. I wonder if that's, my resume, my expertise is in commercial real estate leasing and management. Lobbying, I guess, is sales. Also, I've done promotional presentations for them. I don't know, given the politics, I'm not sure if that's good, bad. I mean, when I applied for something at the UJA, I definitely kept it in, but.
Yes. Yeah.
So
you could put, if you don't, you could put a nonprofit. So you can leave the name out. I had somebody who, this was years ago. They did a lot, on a volunteer basis for a religious organization, and we use nonprofit. So if you wanted to put nonprofit, and right, this is why we talked about the specialization. If you have a resume, you're going to tailor it to a specific job. So UJA, right? You said UJA. So that's where that would, resonate with them if you use the name. Okay. Sometimes what I'll see on resumes is at the bottom, the very last thing, people will have the wording references available upon request, and you don't use this real estate to say that. So that's an outdated thing. And that's why I added this at the very end. So you don't include the reference list on the resume. You want a separate document, and you would include, I say 3 to 5 names. You can use the same font, same format from your resume, so the same header, and then you would list the names of the references and the relationship. So think about the people who can attest to your skill set, who you've worked with over the years, who would be a good reference. You can put their name, the company that you worked at, and the years that you were employed there, list the title, the phone number, and the email for that person. And also with the reference list, make sure you ask them in advance. I know this is probably obvious, but I'll say it. Reach out to your references and ask if, they would be willing to serve as a reference for you. And then when you have this, if you give it out, let them know too, give them a call at the appropriate time to say, hey, you could be getting a call from ABC company because I'm moving through the process and I gave them my reference list. And as we discussed a couple months ago, you would talk about my expertise in leasing or in, managing. All right, so that's it from my side. Do we have any more questions, Meryl?
Yes, we do have a question here. And you know what, Christine, it's a long question. Like, maybe you should unmute yourself again and ask the question. It might be simpler that way.
Okay. Yeah, it's a hard question to ask though also. But to which you had said, do not put the number of years of experience because you are dating yourself. But in the graphic design field, a lot of jobs require so many years experience. For example, it's only 3, which is 3 to 5 years of experience. With
and I'm saying now, long days, this room is too cold.
Sorry, I muted them.
Okay, thank you. So if a job description requires so many years experience, do you then list the number of years experience that you have? I guess that's the easier way to ask it.
So meaning in your summary, if they're looking for 3 to 5, do I say I have 3 to 5 years experience?
Yes, or yeah.
No, I mean, they'll see that from your history that you've been in the field for 3 to 5 years, right?
Actually longer, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, you don't, the reason you don't have to say it, or, there's a movement away from saying it is because, again, somebody might think it's too much or too little, right? So if you have 3 to 5, or if you've got more than 3 to 5, they'll see that in your history.
Okay.
That answered your question, I think?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a question from Amy. Why would you give references in advance before you are asked for them?
No, what I'm saying is if you interview and you're, at the end of the process and the company asks for them, then you want to go out to your references and just let them know that, hey, you could be getting a call from. Yeah, I wouldn't, I've heard from clients that sometimes they'll ask for names or references on some applications, and I'll say, no, you want to protect your references, right? You don't want to overuse them, overwork them. So you could say, will be provided, if given an offer, something like that. What I was saying with that 1-page sheet is you want to prepare that now, because when you interview, the time will come where you're asked for it.
Rhonda, I see you have your hand up. You want to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So the way I see it, that there's talent recruiters, and then there's ATS systems, and then there's the networking. It's almost like three different audiences. And I have a very challenging resume. So my question is geared towards, my situation, which is challenged because I'm a return to work candidate. And so that's where I'm coming from. So I want to show more than the 15 years, like I have to, because otherwise it looks like I'm not even, educated or have zero work experience. So,
so how long were you home raising children for a while? Is that?
Well, I'm just asking, I don't really need to get into the details now. I have this huge gap, So I think, like, for my situation, I'm working with the challenge by I'm going to, see what I can do in terms of getting more current experience and education.
So that's where, yeah. So if you haven't worked in a while, you might want to do a functional resume.
Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to do a functional resume because, okay, so my point is like, why is this all of this sort of not being straightforward? I always thought that the resume is a marketing tool, but it's supposed to list the questions so that you're not tripping over the interview or during the interview. So for example, if I had, let's say, 32 years experience at IBM, I would want it to say that, because if it just shows 15, they're going to ask me in the interview, and I want to spend the interview on other things. Like, they're going to find out anyway.
They're in control. They're looking for certain things. So when you say you want to talk about, they're going to direct it. Things that you did 25, 30 years ago might not be relevant to the job, the opening. So that's why you're tailoring it to the opening.
Okay.
Joanne,
Well,
can I
anyway,
make a comment on this?
Rhonda, if the functional resume works if you have,
I've heard functional resume doesn't work. Like, I just think it's better to be straightforward.
Right.
Like,
right.
and my skill things will show up in my previous work experience.
Right. So functional, I said up
And
front.
it doesn't work for the ATS. It doesn't
Right,
work.
and that's
People
right.
have to move your resume around, and everybody has to look at it in the 20 seconds or the 7 seconds that they have to look at the resume.
Right. So that's what I said up front. Right. So, you know, if you
Like,
have
I don't buy into this functional resume. I just heard too many.
Let Joanne answer your question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I was saying. The functional is the least preferred. So maybe what you could do is the hybrid where you're talking about your skill set. And also you mentioned networking, you know, so I don't know how long it's been since your last job, but, you know, you can always reach out to your network as well. And I just heard that there are some companies, they're doing these internship programs or, you know, there are companies where the boomerangs, people who work for a company, they're now going back. There's that term boomerang. So I don't know if you work for IBM. I think you said IBM, you know, maybe you could go back to your former company. The other thing to your advantage too is the job seekers, because, you know, a lot of people, there's that great resignation now, and was it 4.5 million people left their jobs. So that might create openings for those looking for work. And, you know, again, these are suggestions. This is what, you know, is the protocol for resumes now, but you have the final say. So if somebody wants to go back 32 years, you can. You know, I talked to a talent acquisition friend of mine yesterday. She in her mind, she's thinking what's most important to her is 12. You know, 12 is enough for her to see what you've done and what you can do that will help them. So if you haven't worked in a, you know, a paying job, sometimes there's volunteer experience that you can lead with on the resume, and you could say, you know, that first, and then corporate experience if you want to do it that way.
Yeah. So then my other question is, so let's say I worked at IBM from 2000 to 2000 or like 1970 to 2000 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So doesn't the systems, like they take each job. So the way you showed it, you know, you don't have to put on the top 1970 to 2000. You said, well, Correct. If it shows like associate consultant, you could show, you know, 1995 to 2000, but it then doesn't say IBM anymore. It just says the job title. Like I was told that the systems, the ATS in particular, doesn't work that way. It needs to see the company name. Otherwise, it's just like some random job title with a date.
Oh, that I haven't heard.
Can I ask a question here on this same topic that we've been going in circles about? I had an interview yesterday. The guy had my resume. He looked at it, he said, oh, I loved your resume. You had great this, you had great that. And then he said, oh, but it looks like you have a lot of construction in your background, like a lot of construction experience in your background. That's exactly what I need. I'm like, sir, you didn't read my resume. I'm like, you've had my resume for a week. And I said, in complete respect to you, you said I have a great resume. Here's my resume. I handed it to him. He's like, oh, this isn't the one I looked at. I'm like, then you never looked at my resume. And we started again. And he's like, Barry, your resume is beautiful, but I can't help you. This is not the job for you. And we sat and we talked. It was a beautiful conversation for another 15 minutes. We put the resume on the side and we just talked back and forth about experience in my industry, experience in their industry, how I could potentially in a year from now, when they get to where they want to be for the person that they're trying to hire, that maybe I could, you know, so it was a great conversation, but they took my resume and they're like, oh yeah, this is not the one I saw. So obviously whoever told him to speak to me, you know, it was all fine and beautiful that they had my resume, but it didn't work. So
well, the important thing is you got in front of a person, right? So like you said, you had your opportunity to build a relationship and talk about your experience and how, 100%. You know, what their problems are, how you can help them. So maybe it was just serendipitous, right? That you got in front of them.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the fact is that the experience, I don't think really mattered to that person. So, oh, you know, when I told them that I didn't have the exact experience, that's when it mattered. But when I told them that, oh, I had this experience, that experience, and that experience, you know, that's really helpful for my business, but not now, but in a year from now. So if you put it on a resume, as Rhonda was trying to say, if you put all of your experience, be it 30 years ago, It's still helpful if someone actually gets to it. It's helpful. Yeah, slipping.
Well,
through
in
the
30
just-
years, you're not going to, the common format is 1 to 2 pages. 30 years, most likely, you're not going to be able to fit on 2 pages. And you have to
You're
think
not going to put
again,
7 jobs for 30 years. You're
you
going to
have to
put
think in the mind, you
jobs
have to
in
think in the mind of the hiring manager, the screeners, they've got an opening now. So did what you do 30 years ago relate to this opening now? It's your
Correct.
marketing tool. So
Sorry.
I've
Sorry to
had some
interrupt
clients
you.
who they said that I'm putting it all out there. I don't care. That's your call. It's your document. But these are just suggestions. This is what is common protocol for resumes now.
Sorry
Okay,
to
everybody
interrupt
sit
you.
tight for a minute, because I see people are starting to drop off, and we have, Joanne is more than willing to answer a lot more questions. I know there are a couple of hands raised there on my screen, but it's that time again. I'm going to put into the chat box, I think I'm putting it into the chat box, the evaluation. For those of you who are new to the program, you have to click on the link. Their link is not there. Why is the link not there? Did I not copy it all? I missed the link part. Hold on one second, guys. Give me a second. I'll put that in there. And go to the evaluation. I noticed that people have not been behaving themselves. We had like 70 people on the call last week and only 35 people filled out the evaluation. It is crucial that we get this evaluation filled out. A, because we can't keep doing these programs for free if we can't tell our funders, look what the people learned at these programs. So that's immensely important. And secondly, as Joanne will learn, every one of my speakers gets a detailed thank you after the program, giving them the positive feedback and the things that people thought they could change. So I'm going to be quiet now. Nancy is going to time 3 minutes, and I actually have a bonus for you guys today. But click to the link, go fill out that evaluation, please, please, please. Everybody, there's 68 people on the call. I want to see at least 60 evaluations. Okay, we're ready to go, Nancy?
Ready to go.
And I just want to say one thing too. You have your resume, you apply online, but networking is also important. So the applicant tracking system doesn't always pull your resume up. And you guys know, if you've been in search, you can apply for 10 jobs and maybe you hear on 1 or 2, right? So networking is a whole nother workshop, but networking is important as well.
Yeah. All right, go do the evaluation and then we'll be back in 3 minutes.
Oh, Jeopardy.
I don't have the link. Where's the link being sent to?
The link was in the chat box.
Oh, all
It's
right.
right there.
And you don't have to listen to me hum it.
Good old Spotify. How much more time do we have?
We have under a minute,
Okay.
50 seconds.
Joanne, I sent you a chat.
Carol?
Yeah,
Hi, Patrick. It's not registering my answers. I don't know why.
really? Is anyone else having that problem?
I don't know. It comes up and it looks like a template rather than the actual grid to answer. Or
Is anybody else able to fill out the actual?
I don't know why.
I
have it.
I was able to fill out, but I found
Yeah,
that
mine
the,
worked.
the forms, there was a couple of fields that took a while to load. So I waited a second or two and then clicked back into the that particular field and it worked.
Okay, so as long as, Patrick, I don't know why you're having problems if everybody else is working.
I'm getting your template, but it looks like it's a screenshot. I
Send
mean,
me
you
an
gotta
email
answer it,
and I
couldn't
will
do it.
send you the link again.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Time's up.
Trying to help you.
Thanks. I will definitely send it to you again.
Okay, thanks. I'm trying to help.
Before we go on to opening up the door, I know someone put in a couple of times, and Joanne, this may be a totally different program, but someone asked about federal resumes. Is that too much to answer in a program like this?
Yeah, that's not my area of expertise. So I haven't worked on any of those. From what I understand, the federal, application process is very intense, right? And yeah, I just don't have any information to share on that.
Yeah, and I know that in the olden days when we actually had resume books, and you probably can get them at the library, or you probably could do it online.
You can Google it.
Yeah, there
you can
was
Google it.
specifically for federal resumes. There was also one for military people who were coming out of the military and have to translate all that military stuff into like non-military stuff. So those very specific kind of resumes is a little beyond the scope of this program. Joyce, is that a new hand raise or is that an old hand raise? Joyce?
That's an old hand raise.
Oh, okay. Is there somebody else who has their hand raised that wants to, that I haven't called on or put something in the chat box and I missed it?
Carol.
Go ahead, Carol.
Hi. Thank you so much for having this program. It's been very insightful. My question is, in my particular case, I have stepped out of the workforce to raise my children. So I've been out for maybe 12 years now, and the relevant experience that I have in the travel industry is more than 15 years old. So how do I incorporate that to a current travel job?
You're trying to get back into the travel industry?
Yeah.
Okay. So you could.
And my gap has been filled with volunteer experience, but not for that particular category of travel necessarily.
Okay. Right. Okay. So you might do like the hybrid resume, which is the second example I gave. So you have your summary, business professional, and then you could have your 3 areas of expertise. So whatever they would be for the travel industry, and then you can put travel industry experience and then the job there. So you left it in 12 years ago was 2010?
I left the travel industry. I worked there for 13 years and I left it back in 2005.
Oh, okay, 2005. So, and you're looking to get back into it?
Yes.
Yeah, so you might want to do that example too in the resume handout, and you could list your travel experience, and you can put the years there. It is going to be, outside of that 10 to 15, but that's what your experience is. The volunteer work that you're doing, do you have any skills that would transfer to the travel industry?
Yes, I work for a nonprofit and continue to do so. And my experience with them has been peppered with travel arrangements and things of that nature. I'm like the go for it. So that is helpful. But my concern is that the gap is so big from the relevant experience to where I'm at now that I was finding a hard time how to incorporate that into a resume. And considering the ATS system and how that operates, it's like, it just seems a little overwhelming.
So you're working for a nonprofit now, you're doing some travel experience that would be relevant to travel jobs now?
Yes, but it's not something that I do on a consistent basis. It's almost like on demand as is needed.
But that's okay. When was the last one that you did? Recently?
And yeah, and what I also did do is that I did work as an independent contractor right before the pandemic, and then that lasted maybe a year or two, and then the pandemic hit, and then that went down the tubes. Nobody was traveling.
Yeah, so you can put that on there too. You can put, yeah. So you could start with, your experience. You can put the nonprofit experience that you're doing and work in the bullets that are related to travel. And then before that, you had the job that ended because of COVID, right? So people totally understand that, but that's involved in travel. So you could just put it under the heading, professional experience. And then you would list with the put the most recent stuff and then maybe use that heading prior travel experience.
Okay. Okay. And on the volunteer experience, if it's not relevant to the job, do I keep it as volunteer experience separate?
Well, you said you're doing things in the volunteer role that do relate to the job, correct?
Right, but in order to to justify the big gap, I should just be putting then what's relevant to the current posting I'm applying for as far as volunteer experience is concerned.
I'm not sure I understand the question. So you're talking about updating your resume, correct?
Right.
Okay, so you have the heading professional experience, and then the name of the nonprofit you would put as your most recent job because that's the one that you're in now, correct?
Right.
Okay, and then you would have, the scope of the job and bullets, and the bullets you said relate to travel, experience.
Right.
And then the job below that would be, you said you were a travel consultant?
Yeah, I was a contractor, independent contractor.
Okay, so you can put that as well, and everybody understands, everybody knows what happened in 2020, but that's recent travel experience, so just that it was short because of the pandemic. And then you could put the actual travel experience that you had for 12 years or in the travel industry below that.
Okay.
So you could maybe put, if you don't want to put the years because it's 12 years, it was from 05, right?
Yeah.
So 17 years. So maybe use that heading prior, related travel experience.
Okay.
And have you started looking at job ads for what you want to do just to get a sense of what the language is? Because, again, skill sets that you got from these more recent jobs, might transfer to where you want to go.
Yeah, I find that the skill sets have not changed much.
Okay.
Just the system, the software systems that are still being used, but they're probably updated. So that's where I would probably not be
up to date.
Right, up to
so
date.
here's what you can do as well. If you're on LinkedIn, you can find people that who are in the travel industry now, or you can type in the name of the system and see if anybody comes up that and say, hey, could I talk to you about this system? I'm looking to get back into work, and I just like to understand what it looks like now versus 2005. Or maybe, if you're getting unemployment, maybe unemployment would pay for you to go for training on the new system. There's so much training out there. If you have LinkedIn for $30 a month, you get access to the LinkedIn Learning. I don't know if they'd have airline training, but maybe unemployment would pay for you to get that updated training. Go into LinkedIn and put in the name of the system. See if you're connected to anybody who's doing it now that would, give you an overview of it. With COVID, who knows how it would be done. You could do it, virtually, or I don't know what's on site these days, but start reaching out to your network as well. And if people that you worked with in 05, see if they're on LinkedIn, see if they're still in the field. And then you're getting word out that you want to get back into it. So you never know where that could lead.
That's a great idea. Thank you so much for those suggestions. I didn't even
Okay. Good luck.
All right, a couple more hands raised, and I don't know what order they came in. I'm just going the order on my screen. So Michael, you go first.
Okay, so the first, early in your Zoom call, you're going to talk about the LinkedIn URL.
Yes.
In your personalization. And the second question is, you also talked about the jobscan.io. So
yes,
is it
jobscan.co.co.
This is basically what I learned from JVS was to incorporate the job description keywords into your resume or your professional summary.
With jobscan.co, the website allows you to take the content from your resume populate that field, and then take the content from a job description and put it in the other field, and then it will tell you how well you match up. So it could be 10%, you know, I've seen 70%. So you can use that for fun if you just want to test it. But I've also heard, you know, clients who matched up really well through jobscan.co applied for jobs and didn't hear. So that's why we always say you have to network as well.
Okay.
But you can use jobscan.co to see how well you match up, and that'll tell you, you know what, I am missing a bunch of keywords. So that might help you update the resume too.
Is that a
You know,
free
it's not
application?
foolproof. What's that?
Is that free?
I think
It
there are a
is to
couple,
an
like
extent.
2 or 3 times you can
Yes,
do it free.
to an extent, it's free, right? And then you have to pay. The LinkedIn URL, the system will generate one for you after your name. It gives you a lot of letters and numbers after your name, so you can clean it up. If you go to LinkedIn from the screen in the upper right-hand corner of your home screen, you have your little thumbnail photo, and there's a drop-down arrow. You click on that, and
Michael, if you need help with that, I can help.
Okay, we can do.
That's a subject for another topic.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay.
I don't know. Can you guys see this?
I'm okay. Okay.
Yeah, I can do it real quick. So just right here, I made a mistake. It's not over here. It's over here. You can click on your photo, and then you can just click here, edit your public profile and URL.
All right. All right.
And then right over here, same upper corner, see how mine is cleaned up? You just click on the pencil, put the cursor after the last letter in your last name, and delete all the stuff that comes after it.
And don't forget to hit save.
Yes. Yeah. So Meryl knows how to do that as well, so she can help you.
Okay. Thank you.
Richard, you have your hand up.
Yes, I have years of professional experience, especially in the franchise area. And I'm trying to move away from that. I just want to get a job for the next few years, maybe retail, that type of thing, something a lot simpler. But obviously my background doesn't match. You know, so a lot of the jobs are looking for, you know, 1 year experience and things like that. How should I modify my resume?
So you owned franchises?
I worked like at Subway headquarters for many years. I've been a franchisee of another brand. So I've been in the franchise industry for years, but I'm moving away from that. I just want to do something a little bit simpler. I'm not looking for a corporate job anymore.
But you said you want to move into retail. So to me, franchise is retail, right? Like food, retail, customer facing.
There's certainly that aspect of it, certainly, yep.
Yeah, so what kind of role do you want in retail?
Well, I mean, it could be honestly as simple as working at Stop and Shop or something like that, you know, something really basic.
So you have the retail experience, right? The skills that would transfer, the retail, the customer.
Yeah, and I include all that on my resume, but so let me just give you a little more. So I have a professional resume that's been reviewed a number of times by people like yourself, and I'll use that. I'll use that to apply, but obviously it's overkill for the position. So I've taken it, I've reduced it down to something much more simple.
Okay.
Where I don't have a lot of the accomplishments and things like that. It's more, you know, functional from that standpoint, I guess. But even so, it still feels like it's the wrong approach to go after these type of jobs.
So you're looking, you said, did you say cashier or something?
No, yeah, just something in retail. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, if you're looking to go to a King's or a Stop and Shop, you might just be able to walk in, right? Because a lot of retail places where I go shopping, they're saying, you know, I went Christmas shopping and it was, I think it's HomeSense. It's a home goods store. And they had a sign as soon as you walked in, like on the spot interviews. So if you're looking to do that, you might not even need the resume because it seems like so many retail places have help wanted signs.
Joanne, there's amazing misconception. My daughter is in the University of Maryland, and she's walked into a dozen food, clothing, Target, CVS. They all have signs, we're hiring. Oh, yeah, we're hiring. We'll let you know. And a dozen. This has been since September, October, November. Nothing. They haven't gotten back to. She walked in. She spoke to them. Yeah. We'll meet. We spoke. You know, but never got back to her. finally, like this week, Cold Stone Creamery was the only one that got back to her and said, we may have a job for you when you come back to school. You're saying, I get it. I totally get it. But with signs we're hiring. But when my college-age daughter walks in and says, I can give you the hours, 20 hours a week, and she doesn't get it.
So a couple things. That's the first I've heard, right? So I deal with not that level, but has she followed up? People say, and this happens to everybody in job search.
Phone calls.
Okay, so she's done what she could do, right? She's done what she could do. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe Cold Stone Creamery, because it's ice cream, maybe they're not busy this time of the year. They're looking to fill positions for the summer, right?
No, they're the ones who want her for like starting next week.
Okay.
Cold Stone.
Coming back to my question though, should I approach my resume differently? Because you still have to apply online to quite a few of these jobs. So should I change my resume dramatically to go after these type of positions?
Well, you could do, so you're looking to get into retail. You had high-level positions in the franchise industry. You could, I know people who wanted to downscale, right? So like maybe the last 5 years of your career. So you could put the franchising stuff, maybe don't put a ton of bullets, right? Just to show how you excelled in those higher level roles, because they might think, oh, he's overqualified. And maybe you do a toned down summary, business professional, and you can kind of combine objective. Objectives dropped off. It's not, 20, 30 years ago, looking for a position where I can learn and grow with the company, but maybe you incorporate the objective in there, looking to move into whatever the role is in the retail industry.
I do that. So usually with these positions, because I know my resume is inconsistent with what they're looking for, I always put a cover letter, like a simple cover letter.
Yes.
That ties along the lines of what you're describing for an objective, but also the dependable, those type of adjectives that they're looking for in retail.
But you could work it into your summary. We looked at the summary in the presentation. So you could, retail professional or business professional with extensive experience in the retail industry, looking to move into a customer facing role, and then talk about your excellent skills, or however you want to word it, and then you can list your franchise experience, but tone it down.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Being very nice, Joanne. We always call it dumbing down your resume.
Yeah.
That was big, like in the financial crash, 08, 09, because there were so many people looking at that time. And people were going for lower level, and that's always the perception, oh, you're going to leave us as soon as something better comes along. But I had somebody do that successfully, where you're just saying looking to move into this kind of role based on excellent whatever skills. So you can, and networking too, so you may know people who did just that. They went from high level franchise roles into retail. So how did you get into that? Maybe they can refer you. So talking to people is key too.
All right, thank you.
What I might also suggest is, and I've done this with a lot of clients, is at the top, you do sort of that highlights of skills, highlights of whatever it is, and just really focus on the ones you think they'll be interested in, like the customer service and this and that. And then at the bottom, just sort of list your jobs without too many bullets at all. And then you probably get it into one page, and it's really just going to speak, but you got to know exactly what you're looking for. And you really have to look at the job descriptions you're applying for and saying, okay, these are the 5 things they're asking for. I'm going to put those 5 bullets in my highlight section as things I've done, worded in a simple way. And
that's why I talked about that self-assessment in the presentation. Know where you want to go, look at the marketplace, and then you can match up what they're looking for with what you're selling, and then present yourself on the resume. But yeah, Richard, so you might want to do that hybrid where you have those 3 areas of expertise, and you can talk about those things that would be relevant in a retail job, the one that you want to get now. And not talk about, managing a $10 million budget and a staff of 30, you don't do that.
Okay, thank you.
Patrick, you've been sitting so quietly and patiently. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I've got a few more minutes and I've got a
All right,
hard
yeah,
stop.
now we gotta shut down. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, on occasion, I can be quiet. I enjoyed the presentation, and I have a sort of a general question. Every evening on the news, you hear about how many, literally the millions of jobs are out there that are open and they can't fill them. Have you found that companies are just as stringent now as they were before the 2 years ago, or are they less stringent? I'm confused about so many jobs being open, especially at the level of the people who are on this call, and so many people still looking for work. It seems to be a sort of a conflict to me.
What I'm still seeing, at the professional level, you still go through the rounds of interviews. So, you're dealing with the screening people first, the talent acquisition people, then you might meet with the hiring manager, and then you have to go up the line and you're meeting with the team. So is that what you're asking?
Yeah, even with all of these open positions that, at least if you listen to the news, they appear to be pleading for people to come and take these jobs. It's still the same rigorous
I'm still seeing
approach.
that. Yes,
Okay.
I'm still seeing that with the interview process. And, I think the Great Resignation, it was the highest in September or November. So maybe, maybe it hasn't hit that end yet where they're going to move up the process, but I'm still seeing it where you have to go through the rounds of interviews. And, the Wall Street Journal, I mentioned this earlier, they had an article on the boomerang. So companies, a lot of the consulting firms are looking to hire. And so people who work for companies are going back. There's that boomerang, going back to the company. So maybe that process might not be as long because you're a known entity in the company.
The other thing, Patrick, is that you have to do a deeper dive into those statistics. The jobs that are open are, at the hotels, at the restaurants, at the travel, there are a lot of the Amazon jobs. There are a lot of the much lower positions. And what they're saying is people are leaving retail jobs because they don't want to be exposed to COVID, because they pay very poorly, and they're moving into jobs that are more, a lot of remote customer service, call center, where it's a little, easier and to be safer in terms of COVID and things like that. So it's a really interesting statistic. But I'm also finding, as Joanne said, that the higher level, middle level, senior level management jobs that we deal with more of, yes, I still think that there are more of them available, and maybe there aren't 15 people applying for the same one job. There may be 5 people applying for the one job, but you're still going through multiple interviews and all that other stuff. Joanne, before I forget, because a couple people asked, and I guess it wasn't on the end of your presentation, if you can type into the chat box your contact information, people want to know how to reach out to you. So if that's okay.
Yeah, I don't do one-on-one consulting. I'm with a firm. So, I know there are, I don't know if you do coaching through the center, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, if people have more questions for me, I've put my information in a million times. So I think that it's time to say goodbye to our wonderful speaker, because I know she has to get back to her other clients.
Right.
So first of all, a round of applause. I know there are only 47 people on now, but at one point it was in the 80s. So thank you so much. As with all of our speakers.
Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.
Volunteer, they do it pro bono. It's terrific that they do that, and we greatly appreciate it.
Thank
so
you.
I'm so glad that you were here and you were able to present for us, and it was an amazing presentation.
Yeah, I can give my email. If you have one follow-up question, I'd be happy to answer, but I don't do the one-on-one coaching. So I guess I just type it
to everyone. Chat
yeah,
to everyone.
Chat.
Whoever's left.
Chat. Okay.
For the record, while you're typing, there was a link on LinkedIn about several financial institutions that have been doing these internships for people returning to work.
Yeah,
return to kind of thing, and it was a lot of the brokerage houses, a lot of the bankers, the ITs. I had seen that, and you should just know that I'd seen that a lot.
There's also an organization called I Relaunch. That started off as an organization for people, for women coming back to work, but that was many, many years ago. And now it's open to anybody who's had any gap for any reason who wants to do this returnship, internship, whatever you want to call it. So anyway.
I think you had them as a speaker. I think you had them as a
No,
speaker.
Project Ezra did.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. All right, so the 42 of you are still here. Sneak preview, our program in 2 weeks on January 20th. Affirming Way of Life with Gail, I don't even know how to pronounce her last name, Sigalis. It's going to be a total pivot. It's going to be much more about dealing with the stress of unemployment and how you make it through the day, as opposed to your resumes, cover letters, and interviewing. But we felt like, you know, especially for people who've been out there for a while, we need to do a little bit more of this, you know, sort of emotional aspect. It's not going to be therapy, don't worry about it, but I think she's going to be terrific. So you will all see an email about that as soon as I get approval to send out the flyer. In the meantime, I'm hoping none of you will be here in 2 weeks because you all will have landed great jobs. And I know I say that at the end of every program and you're all thinking, oh, that's Meryl just chatting away again, but I really mean it. And if you do land something, please, please, please let me know whether you're a client or not. If you do need more one-on-one counseling, that's what JVS does. We're here to help you. We don't write resumes, but we edit them to death. We don't write your LinkedIn profile, but we tell you how to do it and we edit it till it's perfect. And we just, you know, we're here to help you be the best job search you can be, do the interviewing stuff, and then also help keep you motivated and supported. So if you have any questions about JVS and our services, email me. I put my email in the chat like 15 times, or just Google my name because JVS will come up right away. And send me, if you do send me an email, send your phone number with it, because I talk, as you can tell, much faster than I type. So I would rather explain things on the phone than type an email. So I will call you back in between my crazy schedule, and hopefully I will be able to explain to you what's going on and how to help. So God bless you.
Thank you very much, Meryl.
Anyway, so
Thank you so
otherwise,
much.
just everybody stay safe and healthy. This new variant is raging through everybody. So just be careful and be safe and just stay healthy, because that's the most important thing. On top
And look out for the weather tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Zoom is good.
I have to say, because we have a 2-car garage, and I made my husband last night move things out of his side of the garage so we can put the car in the garage tomorrow night for the first time tonight. So stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you.
All right. Good luck, everybody.
That is one of the
Thanks
best
a lot.
things you can do.
Thank you,
Joanne.
Joanne.
All right.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Joanne.
Thank you.
Bye.